Hey, thank you, Kyle. Hey, it's great to see you guys all tonight. Thanks for coming out on a beautiful day when you could be outside, but instead you're going to be learning about all kinds of amazing hardware stuff that hasn't really been done before. This is our first hardware teardown. We've had this idea for quite a while, but it's all really possible because we have partnered up together all the major communities in the Bay Area to form the Hardware Collective, which incorporates Hardware Massive. So we had been running the global community for hardware startups. We were up to 44 chapters, and then something called COVID came along. Put a little pause on that. Love to be getting back out here and doing that again. And we've combined forces with Port Labs here, this local space that you guys are all in. Are you guys going to do a tour later? 8:30 is the tour. So yeah, if you want to learn more. Yeah, beautiful. And there is another space here, part of the collective as well, called Circuit Launch, which is near the airport. Alex, do you want to? Yeah, Alex is here. They have a lot of robotics. If you're into robotics, they're really pretty amazing, all the stuff you can see and play with over there and get support. And also do a ton of events regularly. And as well as the SF Hardware Startup Meetup. And Nate, unfortunately, was sick today, so he couldn't make it. But if you're on that side of the water or willing to go that direction, there is a co-working space over there, also very focused on hardware, as well as his company Informal provides talent for what you're looking for, specifically for hardware. So many categories you need to cover in hardware. And part of the events that we're doing, collectively, it's really about finding the right people, the right partners, building those personal relationships. I know we've got a lot of people that are supporting in the industry. So yeah, if whatever you're looking for, mix and mingle here tonight. You can probably find some connection that can help you out. And absolutely want to mention our main sponsor, Kickstarter, who is really making all this possible, keeping everybody fed, getting us all together. I'm sure, has anybody not heard of Kickstarter? Okay, great. They are still live in action and supporting one of the biggest supporters of hardware startups. That ability to get early cash in by selling your idea ahead of time, there is no better money in hardware. You need that money as early as you can. Crowdfunding and Kickstarter is a great option. So I'm playing a little bit of the role of moderator, panelist, community builder, jester, I guess. I don't know, anybody got some balls I can juggle there? So we're about to kick off our panel. And Kyle, did you want to say anything more about it? Okay, I think we're ready to go. So you guys gentlemen want to come take a seat? We all give a warm round of applause.
You want to see on the
Okay, let's see the side.
Yeah.
Forward. Got it. Hello? Okay. You're like a concert. I don't know how to play guitar.
I'm used to not using a mic. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Okay. Okay, so this concept came about, you see all these product teardowns online, right? And you're digging into the product. We love hardware. We love to see what's inside. And some time ago, I had been thinking, wouldn't it be great to tear down a business, a hardware business, instead of a product, right? Because the business is very different than the product. And that's really what we're going to be talking about mostly tonight, is that there's a lot of focus on product, but what is going to make your business successful is your focus on the business. And they can be surprisingly two very, very different things. I've been trying to do this for a long time. I was not able to find a volunteer that was willing to come up and be humble enough, be open enough to really share what they were doing, see under the hood. And so let's give an extra warm applause for James here. Because he is ready to share with you guys for all of our educational purposes about his business and about how it's working and the progress that we've made. So we've been working. Yeah. So James, one of the things that really excited me about working with James was that he is an experienced hardware guy. He has brought big products to market. He's seen the process. He knows how a lot of the product development and go to new product introduction works. And so let me give you a chance to introduce yourself. And,
thank you, Gray, and thank you, Jeff. Hi all, I'm James Lin. I've been kind of working as a product manager for about 20 years. I work from like simple as a digital photo frame to more recent a smart home product. And in the past, because of my job as like most startup, you have to, wear so many hats. So other than being a product manager, you also have to go to become the sourcing manager or production manager. So you get to have a chance to go to like China or different Taiwan to meet different manufacturers. And then so many years, you start accumulating a lot of knowledge about how the product build, how the tooling work, how the product assemble in the factory side. So, that's why I kind of really like to, see the product I help, sell in the Costco, Best Buy, or any place. So that's kind of, I have real passion about to see this product, like people using in the hand. So that's why I continue want to, work on the hardware side, and then also looking for like some kind of a new solution, new way to improve either the current product or a brand new product I bring to the market. So I was really, grateful that I have the opportunity to meet this Gray and Jeff here. And nice to meet you all, too.
And what are some of the products you brought to life?
I worked, first of all, digital photo frame. Back in 2006, I know everybody using the flash card when they take the digital picture. They have no way to show the photos other than the computer. So one of the company I work for, the owner, he has a great idea. Say, hey, why not we put everything in the digital photo frame, and then LCD panel, and you can pop in the SD card, memory card, and start show picture to your friend, and especially go to a grandma because everybody uses a digital camera. Grandma doesn't know how to use a computer, so you load all the picture into the picture frame and then send it to the grandmas as a Christmas gift. And then we did pretty good. I think the time was the first year we sold more than 1 million units. And then the life of the product, I think they're up to like 15 million product. So during that time, I had the opportunity to work with Foxconn because they only work with the number 1, number 2 player. So because the volume is so huge, and then you start working with Foxconn and learn how to deal with them. And also we were big enough to able to kind of guide request a certain chip spec. Like there's a company that we use, and then they say, okay, what kind of feature you want? And then we basically create a list, and they say, okay, we want to have this kind of feature for the next generation. They was able to do that for us. So it was quite interesting experience. And then I tried to do my own, and of course there's the sales marketing side which I'm not good at it. So I started over again, and then last 2016 when we start getting to the smart home product. So I work in a couple smart switch, use a Bluetooth and camera, things so, and then it was doing okay. The product was in the Lowe's, Home Depot, but the volume was kind of okay. So it was kind of like work on a different project. So yeah, so being kind of working the product for bigger company and small company, and then still like to do something my own in the future.
Yeah, and so Jeff and I have been working together at Silicon Valley in Your Pocket. He's the original co-founder, and we've been supporting startups through a virtual online acceleration program, which, Jeff, you want to talk a little more about?
Yeah, happy to share more. So we started Silicon Valley in Your Pocket back in 2018. So we've been virtual from the beginning as an accelerator, and the goal was to really work with founders wherever they were. Because we kept finding, as we were interviewing, we had another accelerator actually across the street at Port Workspace. So we found a lot of founders would come in and try to join our accelerator, but we'd noticed we were meeting a lot of founders from places outside the US. They just kept coming here to Silicon Valley. And we kind of thought, if they could have accelerated a little bit at home and gotten a little further along, we could probably have helped them have a more productive visit, during the time we were meeting them. And so literally the name of the company became Silicon Valley in your pocket, because I truly pulled my cell phone out of my sport coat pocket, and I was talking with a founder at the time from South Africa, and I said, if you have one of these, wherever you are in the world, it's kind of like having Silicon Valley in your pocket. You can just access the techniques and practices that are used here to help grow and foster really great startups, but do it there before you spend all the money and get here. Do it so you show up in a bit stronger position. So that ultimately became the name of the virtual accelerator that he actually became my co-founder. That South African entrepreneur. And then my other co-founder is an entrepreneur himself, serial entrepreneur, also a corporate experience. He's from here, but he's moved to the East Coast, so he's probably listening in online, but he's not here with us. As of a week or so ago, he moved to the East Coast. But the three of us built that up, and to date, we've worked with over 2,000 plus founders across 40 countries. And we shifted a little bit selling to entrepreneurs. We were more like a B2C before COVID, and then in COVID, we didn't have a lot of virtual competitors in the acceleration space, but post-COVID, we had every accelerator became virtual, and so we had a lot more competition. So we've shifted, we're more of a B2B, and our clients now are usually either governments, universities, accelerators in non-US locations for the most part. Yeah, so it's an exciting program. Our main focus is on traction and investor readiness. We have lots and lots of tools that we can offer and provide, lots of group and or individual coaching depending on the founder's needs and budgets. But it's a really great program, and we were very happy to work with James on this program, using a lot of the tools that we have in Silicon Valley in your pocket. There's a lot of stuff actually on the website available for free. You can just join as a free member, get access to lots of cool stuff. Some of the tools we use with James are available in that free kind of resource grouping. So I encourage everybody who's interested to just please go to Silicon Valley in your pocket and just join as a free member. If you want to join further, you're welcome to, but I'd say just start out as a free member and check out the resources we offer up.
So you're probably wondering who let me up here with these guys. And so my background besides community builder is for 20 years I've been running Berkeley Sourcing Group. So we do manufacturing for startups. We've worked with over 1,000 startups in that time. I'm really hoping I've seen every possible problem and way something can explode. I'm often surprised in that scheme, but yeah, my specialty is really design for manufacturing, bringing products to market from prototype to production. So happy in networking if I can help answer some questions. Or right now, because this is going to be an interactive panel. That's what we hope. So if you guys have questions as we're going through the deck and talking about things, please interrupt us. Please ask your question. There's likely other people in the audience that have similar questions. And this is really about helping you guys see what it's like on the inside of a hardware startup and how investors and mentors view this and how we work with the startups to get to that next level. So without further ado, we are going to start. So we started working with James really about a month ago. It hasn't been too long. So take that all with a grain of salt. And James came to us. We're going to show some of his early slides. And again, he has been willing to get up here on stage, and he was not ever expecting to show anybody these slides. So understand that's where it's coming from, but you got to start somewhere, right? You got to start from day one, and that's where we started. And so he brought to us a deck and was talking about investor readiness and how do we get there. And why don't you maybe, do you have the prototype here?
Oh, yeah.
So James came to us with a new idea for a golf rangefinder. And I had actually seen my dad play golf and have this exact problem, so it hit home for me. But the idea is that in normal golf rangefinders, you have a laser, and a lot of the golfing community is older. They might wear glasses, might wear sunglasses, might have shaky hands a little bit. The pin is very far away, and there's a challenge to find the pin with the golf rangefinder.
This is more like a traditional rangefinder that people use. It's more like a traditional rangefinder people use in a golf course that basically is a laser, and you fire a laser and receive and get a distance. So I wear glasses, and when you put this little tiny viewfinder, it's very hard to see it. It's kind of like a traditional way to take a picture, right? You still look a little tiny viewfinder, but nowadays most of a digital camera or use your phone use a large LCD screen. So I was thinking, like, why are we still using this? So I started doing research, talk to the factory, and then take a couple product take apart. It's like, why we cannot make something use a LCD screen as a viewfinder, and you don't have to look for a little tiny screen anymore. So let me turn it on. This is a prototype. So I had this idea, and then start working on a prototype, couple sketch, and then I still want to try to see if this is about the only person has the problem. So I sent this couple to people to review, and then also submit to the PGA show, the trade show that talk about the golf equipment, and then they think this is interesting enough, so they invite me to showcase this inventor spotlight. So I got pretty good positive feedback from the community. The golf magazine, everybody say, I think this is kind of cool idea. So I continue to work on it and finally make this kind of working prototype now. And so, but in order to go to the next step, I need to raise the money to do the tooling. So I started preparing my pitching deck, everything, and then I went to the Silicon Valley Small Business Seminar, and then the guy introduced me and Craig together. So they start kind of helping me say, how do I make this information more attractive and more, when you present to the investor, they think you have a valid idea. So we've been working on it the last couple of weeks. And we did a little survey and to validate, not yet.
Anyway, any spoilers?
The deck, so yeah. Okay, so
Teasing it.
So James came to us, and one of the first things we like to do is an assessment. And we have a free hardware assessment online. Again, you guys, we have the QR code up there if you guys are interested in that. But this is a self-assessment that anybody can take, and then as mentors, we do an assessment ourselves. And so when we looked at James's deck, and this was purely an assessment of investor readiness and institutional investors. Okay, so this is not from any other perspective, but this is the concept of, are you ready to start to approach institutional investors to fundraise going the VC route, right? And you can see the numbers up here, and this may seem a little bit shocking, but this is totally normal. And this is a first window of insight about kind of the hardware startup's perspective usually of their own business versus the investor's perspective of how ready they are to be invested upon. Oh. Sorry.
I think it's 88% on the self-assessment.
So yeah, the sum is for the self-assessment was 88.2, and for the mentor assessment was 33%. So
just to give a little insight to that, we've worked with lots and lots of founders to do these self-assessments and then have a consensus of several mentors or investors do the other side of that. So it's not one individual versus the founder's assessment of themselves. It's a group of people who independently look at the same exact material and assess it themselves for specifically investor readiness. They're generally investors themselves and or mentor or coaches, whatever you want to call it. The typical founder will rank their score somewhere between 40 to 250% higher than external founders. So again, there's nothing abnormal about this when we saw that self-assessment and then had the mentors and investors go in and do the assessment. We looked at that and said, okay, that's just a normal kind of outcome. Now let's work at it. So in that graph on the far side of the, on the right-hand side of the screen, the blue is what the minimum should be. And it's basically you want to get about an 80% overall. That's where you would like to see it. The red is where the founders saw themselves. And the yellow in the middle, the tightest one, is where the other investors and mentors saw the scores. And again, highly normal chart. So this is no reflection on James as a founder, on the mentors. It's pretty much what we see all the time. What we provide down below, and they're only showing really the very first thing, is when the investors and mentors assess these, they don't just say, here's your score, and it's this percent. They say, for each of those 9 categories above, here's specific feedback that we think will help you improve the score of how investors see you in that category. And here's a tool we typically link under that word resources on the bottom right. We typically will link a resource. So if we say to you, for example, you should do more customer discovery, make sure you understand the needs and desires of the market. Well, then you're going to have a link to a customer discovery toolkit that's actually going to help you do that. It'd be one thing if you were told, just go do more customer discovery. That's not really actionable. So we provide resources and tools with each comment. And if there are 3 or 4 or 5 mentors doing that mentor investor side, you're going to get 3 or 4 or 5 unique comments in general. So just to give more context to that screen, that's usually about a 2 or 3 or 4 page report that the founder is then provided. Mm-hmm. Go through the 9 categories.
So product market fit, competitive advantages, go-to-market vision, viable business model, strong team, financials, traction, compelling fundraising, engaging story, which is going to be our theme tonight.
Well, the really important part is, we're always optimistic as an entrepreneur. So what's the
You have to be.
what's the blind spot in those categories? That was a blind spot for me. What is the main, if there is something that bubbles to the top, the main culprit, like the main blind spot in each category? For example, product market fit, if I miss the key feature that the customer values, or finances. I only got my financial, but what hasn't had the right format for investing. Do you have a summary of that?
Absolutely. That's what we're going to, our whole talk tonight basically is going to be about that. And I can, fundamentally, I'll share with you, when we saw this product, I think we all had the same feeling, which was interesting idea. It seems like there could be a problem, but is there really a problem? Is there a real problem? Is there a real product market fit? How can we, and not only that, is the market willing to pay the price to solve that problem? Or are there other competitors out there that are similar, able to achieve solving that problem in a different way? And so, because James came with all of his experience developing products, normally that would be that's a red flag for most hardware startups, is not understanding the process of design for manufacturing, going from prototype to production, not understanding the costs. Every unknown, surprisingly, doesn't reduce your costs. It goes the other way, right? Things get more expensive. So there's a lot of things that James came to us with, the skills that he had, knowledge about the product that we didn't need to worry about that we normally would have. That being said, the challenge of getting to market and understanding the market and being willing to hear what real customers are saying is the other most common problem, not just for hardware startups, but for any startup. And so go through some of the slides here that we have from James' first deck to us. So the pain points, he identified the small viewfinder, that you have to close one eye, and the sunglasses or glasses can make that a challenge. And it's difficult to view for golfers without a steady hand, right? But one thing we noticed about this slide is that nobody's having that problem here, right? These are professional PGA people that are kind of knocking it out of the park with the way they're looking at this thing. So the first thing we want to make sure is that this is a story, right? And if you're having an investor deck that is compelling, you know, the images on here, they need to be the target, right? They need to be the person that has this problem, and it should be very clear from a quick view, there's a problem. I see the problem. I can feel the problem. And I don't know, Jeff, do you want to elaborate on?
One thing we work with founders on is the story, because a great idea without a great story is not necessarily going to attract the attention you desire from the investment community specifically. So one of the things that we encourage is tell a story that is both relatable and compelling, right? What makes something relatable? Concepts and statistics don't make things relatable. I would say 8 out of 10 founders decks that I see start with concepts and statistics. 82% of golfers this. I'm going to forget that 2 slides later. But what I'm not going to forget is something I'm not going to tease yet, because we're going to go there in the next revision of this pain point problem, you know, articulation. But just bear in mind, we're all human beings. We've all grown up listening to stories. We can remember stories from our childhood because of characters that we can recall. We don't remember statistics and concepts in the same way, generally speaking. There are exceptions to everything, but generally speaking, that's what we focus on. So we looked at this and thought, yeah, there's some concepts here, but I'm not quite sure I can really remember it in a way that's going to feel, you know, 3-4 slides down this story, I'm going to remember this. So we'll get to, again, what we did in terms of changing that up a bit.
Okay, and then this was the product slide and kind of how was the solution was going to happen? And then the competitor slide. So it had a list of competitors and pricing. Oh, sorry, going too far. So as we saw these, and you guys might have the same feeling, but, and this was early again, James was not looking to send this to an investor just yet. He was preparing for that. But it really was along the same idea that there wasn't really a story here, right? There were numbers, there were pictures, there were ideas, but there was no beginning point, there was no empathy for the pain of the problem, and there was no clear path towards the victory for the hero, right? Where they're going to be able to easily find the rain, you know, find the pin. And so without that sort of empathy and emotional connection, it turns into a lot of numbers and a lot of statistics and a lot of features that are not really moving the needle emotionally. And I don't know, James, you want to talk about kind of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, kind of like as a kind of creator of the product, you tend to think that, okay, a lot of people have the same problem like I do, but there's no number to show to prove that, you know, everybody will say that have experienced the same thing too. So that's why we want to, you know, get more information, understand what is going on with the market, what's on the people, and then get more information from the customer side, real customer side. Right? So
we held James' feet to the fire. And we said, okay, we need to find out if there's a problem. How do you do that? Anybody? Ask questions. I would be dead before I could effectively run that kind of company. So yeah, we ask questions in a formal way and a design. Let me use a fancy word for it so that all of us engineers can really embrace this concept. Because what it is, it's a design of experiments for your business, right? It's a marketing survey. So, and you need to think of it, if you're familiar with design of experiments or you use that, that's exactly what a market survey is. And there's a lot of critical parts to that, is that you need to control bias. Right, you cannot introduce your own bias, which is a very natural and normal thing to do. It's also a very scary thing to do, which is why I think most startups are not prepared or willing to do that. Because what if the numbers are bad? What if the results are not what I wanted? It's a very scary thing to do. But you need to think of it in the perspective of, what if you find that out now, or what if you find that out in 2 years from now, after you've paid for tooling, you've developed a product, you've gotten down that road, right? The marketing survey, the most important audience for receiving that is you, right? You, more than anybody else, need to know that your product has a viable chance, that there's a real need, and what the hypothesis that you have is correct. It's great for other things too, but mostly it's important for you. And a big part of this equation is that because of that, it must be honest. It's very easy to introduce bias, and you want to, right? You want to go out there and give some little hints about, oh yeah, this is a great idea, don't you agree? And have everybody give you a high five, right? That's our emotional happy place, right? But that is not what you need for your business. You need some people to come in and tell you the honest truth, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So.
Yeah.
No, I think the majority of startups don't do enough. I call it customer discovery, right? They're just not really going out and identifying the true needs and desires for us. Is there a real problem, and what are the needs and desires in regard to what a solution should be to address those challenges or the problem? I would say the vast majority of founders don't start there, and it's the cheapest information you can gather before spending a lot of money either building a prototype or in this case, a hardware prototype. Sometimes people go build a mobile app, and you spend all this resource. I mean, I've never met the startup who's got a problem with having too much dollars and not enough to do with it, right? So if you were living in a limited resource world, you don't want to spend those dollars unwisely. And the cheapest thing you could do is go talk to people, go find out the reality and the urgency of solving that problem. Is it a nice to have a solution to that problem, or is it a must-have? A must-have is obviously going to be more attractive. So you just have to really go out and do that customer discovery. And it sounds boring and not exciting. It's more exciting to go build something and test it out, but that's the part that's more costly as well. So again, going back to that living in a resource-constrained environment, we encourage so much more focus on the customer discovery up front. Before you write code, before you start building prototypes, before you create an MVP, go out and talk to users. And don't just talk to your friends and family. They'll all think it's brilliant. Go talk to people who you don't know. Go to a cafe, talk to people, hire a firm to help you with it. There's firms that do this kind of work and help you get access to that kind of unbiased information.
Yeah, it's tricky to keep it unbiased too, because you will have your own natural biases. So keeping a strong, and you know, we work together too, because there was I think you were going to share it with a picture of the device, and you know,
No picture.
take that out, right? You can't even really, they shouldn't even know it's a rangefinder ultimately, right? Because the rangefinder and the features and the product are not your business. Your business is solving the problem. And the problem is enjoying golf, really, right? That's fundamentally the problem. One step up from that is being able to see the distance and improving and doing it in a way that is reproducible, and you have battery life and these other things. So that's another key point, is really understanding the problem. The problem is never a feature. The problem is a feeling. And it's always happiness. Ultimately, everyone has the same problem. Are we happy or are we not happy? Obviously, you go up levels from that and you figure things out, but the problem is emotional, it's human, it's never a product, it's never a feature. So, we held James' feet to the fire. He spent a whopping $60 to boost his Instagram poll, and he got it out into some groups. Some groups prohibited it. It wasn't just easy. You know, he had to do some legwork. He had to find other groups. He had to email folks, try to get approved. Ultimately, he had to bust out his wallet and spend that $60. And you got 54 responses, 57?
Yeah.
57 responses in about a week.
7 days. Yeah, 7 days.
In a week. So now there's a formalized experiment, right? This is not just talking to people, but it's getting the data, getting the numbers, and so we were thinking of how do we best present this, right? And we asked these questions. Can you guys read the questions up here? Should I read those out? Yeah, sorry, this is a little bit small. So this is a pedal chart, and a fairly unique one, I guess. Jeff taught Steve Blank some things and changed kind of the format of this into one that is feature focused and kind of pain focused versus industry. But this is a pedal chart, and what it shows is that, so these are smart features, easy to find the pin, easy to carry, use, affordable price, and longer battery life. And in the survey with these folks, 71% of people were unsatisfied with the number of smart features that were available. 64% were unsatisfied with how easy it was to carry and use. And this is based on a 7 scale rating. 7's always a good number. The human brain can separate at about that level. Affordable price, longer battery life, easy to find the pin. So this was 61% for longer battery life was unsatisfied. 66% were unsatisfied with the ability to find the pin. And the idea, we didn't have quite enough time to finish it up. We were working on this today, to be honest. But if we had a little bit more time, we'd have more products here. We'd show more of the overlap and how they all fit in the market. But what we're showing here is that James's product fits all these needs. He has better battery life than these. He has the ability to have smarter features because the screen connect to Bluetooth. You can start to introduce all kinds of new features. He's redeveloped the product to be easier to hold. And so now we've got numbers. We've got a real unbiased survey. We have real unbiased numbers. And what do you guys think? Is this compelling? Yeah?
Better than the list.
Better than a list.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, the idea behind this pedal chart, again, it's customer needs focused. So you go out and you survey people and ask them, what are the challenges you're having today as a golfer if you're using a rangefinder? So one of his questions is, do you even use a rangefinder, right? Or do you golf? Do you use a rangefinder? If you do, you continue down the survey. And then ultimately, what are the issues you have with your rangefinder? And here they are. Now he's being told real information that becomes input to, okay, people need a longer battery life, they need easier to see the pin, they need a bigger screen. And so he starts to have a good sense of clarity about what kinds of solution features or functionality will make for a compelling product. As opposed to thinking I know what the market needs, he now has data to back it up. Alex?
How was this, what kind of questions were in that survey? How was the question framed?
You know, we don't have this here, but basically it was how satisfied are you with the advanced smart features available? And we separated it because actually what we found pretty early with some Google searches, there's many products to find the range. There's smart watches, there's apps, there's other things that weren't included in the original dissection of the market. And so we expanded the survey to include those, but we would separate those so that those people using a rangefinder, we asked them how they felt about their rangefinder. So first we separated between smartphones and other things. And then, this is basically just a very quick summary of these questions. So it's how satisfied were you with ... on a scale of 1 to 7? So we did have the ability to leave the questions blank, and between I'd say about 10 and 20 of the 57 people left those blank where I think they didn't have a strong opinion. Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Correct. I have another question. So with this 5 features here, you are only talking about these 5 features, but question basically defines the answer to be out of this five, but it might not discover the painest points for the customer. Because I was also trying to do something like this, but I think it's trying to limit my imagination or blindly find the real problem.
Yeah. Yeah, so the question was, are you sure that you have found all the features that are important to the customer? And we had done some research. We'd seen what the ratings were and other things that people were already talking about the market and this product in particular.
And also there's a section we let people to freely answer the
Open answers.
Yeah, so we collect all the information and we consolidate into these 5 possible problem or experience they want to improve with the rangefinder. So yeah.
In many cases, you'll give a very broad list of, say, 10 or 15 things, and you say, kind of check all that apply. It's the way you frame the question. But oftentimes, we'll say, what are the top 5 things you're looking for? And then there's always an open answer, if you don't have it categorized for yourself. And then what we generally will do is we'll take the top 5 and say, these were the top 5 things that surfaced from the survey itself. So we now know what the top 5 most important things to the needs or challenges that people are experiencing.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is a relatively simple product. And so we felt much more comfortable that we're capturing the feature set that we needed to ask questions about. This could be much, much longer. And the way to approach that is, it's hard to ask a very long survey of questions, but keep it simple and keep the questions broad, and then you'll find out those numbers, and then you can dig in future surveys. This is just one. It's organic. You're going to keep doing it and keep improving.
What about Steve Jobs' commentary on saying we have to be the customers to be inspired, and they don't even know what they want?
I think that's silly. I think he did a great job of it. Hats off to him. I think there are some people that are incredibly genius and incredibly lucky that can make magic happen. Sorry. So the question was, Steve Jobs says, don't listen to the customer, right? That, you need to inspire them. And that's great. If you can do that, right? But for the rest of us, customers are the best. They tell you exactly what they want, and you give it to them, and they buy it. It's amazing. And this is part of the hardware startup journey, right? It's so hard to get products into customers' hands, but if you can scrape, steal, and borrow and get that out there, even if you don't have a great product, you will hear what your product needs to be great, and you can make those improvements. Yeah. The target, what is the size of the market? I forget offhand.
One of the reports say that by 2030, the rangefinder market will be reached about $700 million a year. And then every year, because after COVID, a lot of we did ask the question, and then people kind of give us a ranking, like how much you would pay for a certain type of rangefinder. So that's part of the survey as well, too.
Yeah.
So we didn't show here the detailed one, but the
pricing ranges were given, and what would you be willing to pay for a device, that has some of these other features?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whole new device.
A new device, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that, yeah. No, it's basically, most of the rangefinder just use a laser. So I have to use the digital camera to see the image and display on the screen. And I put those two technologies together and able to show here, so, yeah.
So we're going to have to move a little bit fast. And we got started a little bit late. We're going to still have a lot to cover, actually. So we covered kind of the story. How do you create a compelling story? The other thing that's a really valuable exercise, and all of this is organic, right? You don't do it once and put it in the desk. You're constantly updating and learning and improving, even after you're successful, even when you're Apple, I know Steve Jobs might not agree, but I bet a lot of people at Apple are trying to figure out what people want in the next smartphone, right? You're always improving these things. And so a great way to do that is with a buyer persona. And when you're a startup, you might not have a lot of data out there, but the beauty of a buyer persona is that you have a target. And again, going to the way we think, it's one thing to think about, okay, what does the general market want about my product? Or what picture should I use? Or what words should I use? But when you create a profile, here we have Michael Davis. He's 52, male, business owner, avid golfer. You can kind of get a feel for who he is from the picture. He enjoys it as golf as a way to relax, compete, and be outdoors, plays regularly on weekends, and he wears sunglasses. And so now when you're going back to that original customer slide, right? So this should be all Michael Davis. This should be all Michael Davis having a hard time using his rangefinder, right? You are speaking to him and all the people that know Michael Davises that want to get him a Father's Day gift and solve his problem, right?
To think about this, if you're reading a deck as an investor and you're just kind of going through the deck and you're looking at this and you see the slide that's on the screen now, you're looking at a concept of a device, and you get that. But when you see Michael Davis and you read about his age, what he does, he enjoys golf on weekends, he enjoys competing, you start to think to yourself, subconsciously or consciously, either I'm like Michael Davis, or my spouse, or my partner, or my neighbor, or my friend, or my colleague. And the minute you start thinking anything like that, you care more about it because you have a Michael Davis of your own in your life. And so that's tapping into your empathy. You start thinking, okay, I care because I have someone, or maybe I am someone just like Michael. So now I want to know, what are you going to do to solve, Michael's challenges, because I've got a Michael in my own life, or I myself am like Michael. So it's just tapping into that emotional, empathetic side of the person. As you digest that, it's much different than digesting the slide that's on the screen. You don't have anything to grab onto when you present it in the way it's presented initially. But that's where we use these personas to try to create an empathetic connection that people can have. And I can give you examples in the mingling side of this, networking side of this. I've had founders go from a bad product or problem articulation slide to the use of a very powerful and compelling persona. Nothing changed in their product. They went from months and months of having struggles raising capital to raising 7 figures of capital in a matter of a month. And it was merely the strength of the story. The story became relatable and tapped into the right kind of emotional connections for investors. And it takes out a checkbook in some occasions, which is obviously the goal. So the power of these stories can be tremendous, and they can shorten your fundraising cycle. I don't know too many founders who really want to lengthen the fundraising cycle, right? So the goal is to make it as short as possible. Tell the most compelling and relevant and relatable story, and you're going to find you're connecting with investors much more readily.
And when you're asking ChatGPT to write your LinkedIn posts, it's a lot easier when you can describe who you want it to write it for, right? And it's really, that goes in with the human psyche as well. So James came to us thinking about fundraising. And, we looked at the deck. We're kind of at 33% right now. It's not, institutional investors are looking for unicorns, right? They're not looking for lifestyle businesses, anything less than 40 million, maybe 50 million a year now. Pretty nice lifestyle, as we like to say, but not investable. And so what are the other ways that James could raise money? We started talking about that. Any other customer?
Yeah. Doing the PGA show, so I show this product to many people, and I have one customer from Korea, like very interesting to get to know the product and would like to purchase. And then been kind of discussed back and forth almost 2 years, and then he basically, issued me some kind of like a, in the email say he will purchase, but he also emailed some kind of conditional PO. Once it approved final version, he will like to, purchase the product, and then that would, can help bring the business, sell the product already. So
So one of the things we worked on was taking that email and formalizing it, right? If you're going to meet with an investor, a VC, are you going to say, hey, I got an email from a guy in South Korea, he's interested in buying some? Okay, I mean, that sounds good, but now he has a letter from that interested prospective buyer that says, I want to do a test. When your products are ready, I want to buy this many. Now, it's non-binding, it's not a contract, but if you have 2 or 3 or 4 of these, that's becoming interesting to an investor. They're starting to see there's an expression of interest in what you're building and what you're creating. So we have like templates, as again, on some of our resources that we provide. It's even templates for these kinds of things that you can provide to these prospective buyers to more formalize the experience of what they're looking to purchase from you in the future.
Question was what round? And the answer is basically an angel. Yeah.
It's angel round. So we need to raise. I need to raise enough funding to kind of finish the tooling the product, so I can send to the customer and other customer around the world, and to get approval. Once approval, we can go to production. So that's the one next big step I need to achieve.
So and angels are much more forgiving. Right, but they're still thinking along the same lines, right? They're thinking about growth. They're thinking about really the proof of being able to sell that product. So, yeah, and basically what this is, it's a non-binding commitment that has as much teeth as we could put in it, right? It has a date. It has as much as it can be there without actually, so that we can actually get that signature, right? And again, one might not do a lot, but you get 2, 3, 4, you get some momentum, and it's just much more tangible to an investor than I'm talking to a guy and he's going to pay me some money, right? Well, why don't we stop here for a second? And I think we have a couple more resources, but we don't have a lot more time, so I want to open up to questions now, and yeah, see if you guys have any, or you can think about it for a minute while we keep going.
The next round, somewhere around 100,000. Yeah.
Yeah, to cover tooling and first production is the round.
Thing like that. So.
Yeah. It's only that cheap because James really knows what he's doing. If anybody else told me that, honestly, I'd say it's going to be twice that much. But yeah, that's normal. Yeah.
He pays himself below minimum wage. Brett.
I was just going to ask, maybe you're going to get to it, but where are you at in this process now with James? Are all these, the advice that you've been giving him, have you been now able to present this again to investors and got a different score, or is you're still in that process?
Still in that, yeah. The question is, where are we in the process with like that assessment with investors? We're still in the process of kind of refining the story and the flow of the pitch deck. So we have not reassessed, but that's the goal, obviously, is to complete the story more fully and then put it back out for a different assessment or a reassessment.
No stupid question.
He'll direct that one towards me then. Yeah.
As a film?
In different.
Other fields other than golf.
Yeah, people think about using similar technology for hunting because they can, put on a rifle, do the hunting purpose, and then I think some couple of military purpose they can use this similar idea to that because people try to avoid look at from the little viewfinder. And then with the screen, you can easily to see spy. You don't have to I know when you shoot a rifle, you have to close your eye. And if you close eye for like long period of time, it's very uncomfortable. But with a screen there, you can just look through a screen and then easier to see your target. Yeah. Yeah.
It could, but I'd say as mentors, our investors don't like that, right? You want to land and expand, so you got to do the landing first. So really focus. It's hard enough to get into one market, so choose the best one. Really establish yourself. What happens, especially in hardware, is that there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of relationships to build. It's not just about taking a product to market, but you need to find a good electrical engineer. You need to find a good factory. You need to figure out logistics. You got to figure out packaging, and you got to figure out what colors your customers like, and you got to figure out duties, and is there a cheaper way, and what about returns, and what about defects, and what about safety and certifications, and there's just a lot going on, right? And so that first product, that first market, you get into it, you're checking all these boxes one by one, and you're figuring out all these things. And once you've got to a steady state, which I'll define as enough revenue to pay, to be out of the red, right? By the time you're at that point, you've got partners set up. You've checked all of these boxes at some level, maybe not defects and returns yet, but for the most part, you've got those things figured out. And so now you have an organization that is ready to grow. But until you've gotten through all of that, which is at least a year and a half, right? If you start jumping into anything else, you're going to be distracting yourself from what you really need to be doing, which is building that foundation.
I agree with Greg's point on focus. Investors really like focus, but I agree with your point as well, in the sense that if you position it as golf is our beachhead, but there are other markets that over time we can expand this technology into, I don't think that's bad to tell that up front, but I think it's good to tell it in combination with, but we're going to land and expand. We're going to lock in the golf range finding market first, and we're going to use proceeds that we're able to generate there to help us expand into these other use cases. So I think there's a halfway point between what you and Greg are really saying there. I agree. The challenge you have there is a lot of investors may say, oh, this is a good idea, but you should do this. And now you're going to run down all sorts of rabbit holes. So I don't disagree. That kind of conversation does happen. If he has, through his customer discovery and other work, proven that this is the market, the golf market is the beachhead market, that's his initial entry point into bringing this product to market, you have to hold to your convictions and kind of stare that comment down a little bit to the investor, not to dissuade them, but to say, I don't disagree, but our research shows this is the first beachhead market we should enter. Beachhead market doesn't always mean it's the biggest market, but it may mean the one that proves the value of the use case you're developing. So that other market the investor is talking about hypothetically could be a much bigger market, but it's not necessarily the first market, maybe not the easiest market to enter until you've proven it in an initial beachhead market.
Yeah. And even if they love the market and they love the product for the market, they're still not going to invest in an idea, right? They still want to see the numbers. They want to know there's a pain point. They want to see the traction. So then you pivot, right? And then you focus on that market first.
Jeff, you were saying to me earlier, if the hardware company can avoid taking on investors off a good strategy, it's a small amount of money that James is trying to raise $100,000.
Agreed.
Selling equity, in your mind, the right strategy to go get that money?
So to repeat the question real quick, so it's a small amount of money in this raise. Is selling equity a reasonable way forward for this product?
Yeah, what Sal's referring to is we were talking earlier, and my objective is to help founders achieve their goals in the most efficient and effective way. I think a lot of founders they're a startup founder, so they have this fundamental belief that I have to go raise capital. Because I'm a founder, I got to go raise capital, I got to go talk to investors. And sometimes that is a good decision. In other times, I would say it's not necessarily the right decision. If you came to me as a founder and said, I've raised $1 million from investors, I would say you've added $1 million in valuation to your business. Congratulations. It's great to raise $1 million. If you came to me and said, I've achieved $1 million in revenue, you could add between $5 million and $40 million to your valuation. Revenue has a much higher multiple than investor capital. So my attitude is, If you can find a way to go without investors, and I'm an investor, okay, and I have a lot of colleagues who are investors, so I say this really with a founder's hat on. If you can trudge through it and get to the point where you can prove enough traction and get some momentum going, maybe generate revenue, get creative in how you do your pilots with other market constituents, I think it can behoove you in a lot of cases to not take on too many investors. Now, if those investors bring value beyond the capital, a lot of what I just said goes out the window, because you want to bring on investors who bring value beyond the mere dollars. If an investor invests $100,000 and the value you attribute to their investment is $100,000, might not be the best investor. So, yeah, in this case with $100,000, I would try to get really creative, and we'll be talking further about strategies around raising that money with maybe a strategic. If you had a great golf industry investor, I'll take the 100K because they're going to bring credibility, right? That's value beyond the capital. So there's a little bit of a it depends answer to that conversation. But these are things we'll be working with James on going forward, is to how to strategize around the right investors. And I can promise you, the right investor does not just mean that the check cleared. That's what a lot of founders think. It's not always the right investor.
Yeah, and the other thing is timing, right? I mean, you're never going to get less money for your equity, assuming you're on the right track, than today, right? Your equity should never be worth less now than it is later. So if you can hold on, if you can prove traction, if you can come up with more compelling story, all these things, you can get a lot more money for that same amount of equity. And so it does take time to raise money. So understand the timeline of that. You don't want to run through your cash when you need it, and run out. You're going to run out your business that way. But at the same time, you want to balance that with really holding off as long as you can to take that money, because you want every dollar to be useful now, right? You want to be making it happen. So part of what we've been talking about tonight, not so much on the pitch deck because it wasn't as relevant to James's business, but we do have a storyboard framework that is a free resource. That if you guys want to check out the QR code, I don't know if you can see that. We can leave this stuff up later.
You can also go to SiliconValleyInYourPocket.com, and there's a free resources, and it'll get you access to that document, amongst many others.
And an exciting announcement we have as well tonight is Jeff and I and Cal and our council are working on a new investment mechanism specifically for hardware because it's different and there isn't a great opportunity. And really, James's business is a great use case for this because the concept is that there are a lot of great one-product hardware companies, right? But that investors won't touch. They can dominate a market in their category. You can make $40, $100 million plus. Maybe it can go on for quite a while. Investors still won't touch it because it's one product. It's not going to be a unicorn. There's a cap on what they can make, and that cap is below the kind of companies they're willing to invest in. So what we're working on is a note that will try to work to assuage the investors' fears of investing in hardware by offering them earlier returns and some other mechanisms. But our goal is to really make this something like the Fast Note has become, for software companies, but available for hardware companies. And we have 2 months to figure this out and get this done. So. Bit of a teaser. Apologies for not having it for you guys tonight, but check in with us. Check out, Hardware Massive, Silicon Valley in your pocket, and we'll have more news about this later on. Or tonight too, if you guys would like to talk about it, we'd love to hear your thoughts on, from the startup perspective, what are the kinds of things that you would be interested in having in this kind of contractual agreement with an investor. So. Any questions about that? All right. Yeah, and finally, that's about it. We have a hardware accelerator program that we've given a sneak peek into here. This is access to all of our tools and resources online, over 90 templates like the one, you've seen a couple of those tonight. We have a lot more. This is a hardware-focused program. This can be run at your own pace. We do, weekly or monthly office hours where we come and mentor specifically, or that can be bumped up as needed. It's all very custom, so we have the online resources available, but similar to James, every startup is different. Every startup needs different support, different connections. But we've had a great track record getting like CEO of Foot Locker and some powerful names onto boards, getting connected with the right investors and building that story, right? Building that story for success.
Yeah, I think Greg's kind of touching on advisory boards. That's one really kind of powerful way to improve the credibility of what you're trying to do is get some really, really credible advisors. And we do, literally at any given day, we're recruiting advisors for various startup boards that we're working with. We had a young, innovative hardware company at a prototype level, so they were pre-revenue, and we were able to recruit the former president of Dyson to join their advisory board. So imagine if you're looking at a team slide as an investor and you see a bunch of engineer types and business types, and then you see the former president of Dyson, just kind of changes in your mind the credibility. Well, maybe these folks are doing some good stuff because this person's pretty credible, and if they're here, maybe they're doing some good stuff. Maybe I'll take a closer look. I could give dozens of examples of equally, credible advisory board members that we recruit for. Like I said, that one was pre-revenue prototype level hardware. So,
yeah,
exactly. And they know, right? Because they appear to have the credibility. He's saying it's FOMO, right? Investors look at it and go, well, the Dyson guy, how is this not credible? That person's obviously knowledgeable, and they're there, so they know something I don't know, right? It does create exactly that.
Respect of advisory boards or even external director of the board of directors, what ranges of equity are customary for a pre-revenue to pre-Series A company, but there is some funding already in place, traction, but not quite to the extra yet?
Yeah, just to repeat the question for those that might not have heard it. So it's what is the appropriate range of equity for either advisors or you referenced even boards of directors members for pre-Series A, let's say. We generally don't recommend bringing on investors as, boards of directors at early stage. We want to preserve that for the more substantive investor rounds because each of the Series A, Series B, that's probably going to come along with a request for a board of directors seat. So we generally use the board of advisors as a little bit of a vetting system. Are they good? Maybe we'll ask one of our board of advisors members to step up to the board, meaning the board of directors. In terms of the specific equity, it ranges from 0.15 up to a maximum of 1.0. On average, we see it below a half of a point. And that I've mentioned some of the caliber of advisors that we're talking about. They're in those ranges.
Yeah, there's an advisor agreement out there also called the FAST advisor agreement, which is it kind of lets the advisors choose. You can choose, how well you like that, but it shows the various stages of the company, the commitment of the advisor, and it has similar numbers.
It is. Our advisory agreement is actually built off of the FAST. The FAST was put out by Founders Institute, which is a very common document. We didn't like it in its standard form, so we've modified it. And I'll tell you just the short version of the modification was really around the vesting. The traditional FAST has a 2-year vest monthly. So an advisor comes on, and month 1, they earn 1/24. So let's say you gave them 24,000 shares, if that was the deal. And in month 1, they get 1,000, and in month 2, they get another 1,000. And then you realize, they're not as helpful as I had hoped they were going to be. And so you ask them to step off the advisory board and cut the equity, vesting. So they leave, and on your cap table, you now have an advisor with 2,000 shares. But they're gone now, but they're on your cap table forever because they have 2,000 shares. So we didn't think that was ideal for founders. Another aspect that's interesting is most advisors, as I was a serial founder, I always said the one thing I don't need is an advisor for 2 years. But what I do need is an advisor that gets stuff done for me now. And so how do I create an incentive for an advisor to do now? So we've modified the FAST to incorporate a 3-month cliff. So you get a 90-day kick the tires if I don't like your advice and it doesn't work and we don't click, you're gone and you don't have equity. I don't have a little entry of tiny equity amount on my cap table. The second thing we did was we said, well, 1/24th for 2 years starting in month 3, I want them to do it now. So I'm going to say you vest that way or upon completing a mutually agreed upon set of things you're going to do on our behalf. And if I give you that agreement on a Monday and you finish those things on Thursday, you're vested. Because they're substantive things. It's not like get me a cup of coffee. I mean, that's worth no equity to you, but it's make introductions to, X number, say 3 or 4 accredited investors in your network. Make introductions to X number of partners in your network. And if they're doing those things, you want them to do them quickly because time is never a friend of a startup founder, right? So you want to get as much done as quickly as possible. When you get advisors of the caliber that we're talking about here, I can guarantee you their Rolodexes are pretty spectacular from my experience. I'll give an example of that hardware company that I mentioned with the advisor from Dyson. Within 4 weeks of that advisor joining this young company, they wanted a prototype within the sports industry. Their product was targeted in some capacity to professional and or similar sports. The advisor knew that, made one email introduction to the CEO of the San Francisco 49ers. 3 weeks later, the young company in prototype phase was piloting with the San Francisco 49ers. Changes the way people receive that company. When you look at that company now and you're thinking, do I want to invest in this company? Well, I don't know. They got the former president of Dyson on their advisory board. They're in pilot with the San Francisco 49ers. There were other things as well. We were able to get them $500,000 in grants, so they had $500,000 of non-dilutive capital. You start to build a pretty strong case to say, this company's doing a lot of good things. Maybe I should keep a close eye on it, or maybe I should just put a little capital to test. Alex. He's saying the argument that he hears from some is not to put advisors in your pitch deck because it shows you're not skilled and credible and capable enough, and you're having to surround yourself with advisors. And he asked if I have a counterpoint to that. The only counterpoint is my exact opposite experience over dozens of times.
Yeah. Well, I think I've certainly seen. There are a lot of decks that stuff the deck with advisors, right? And you'll have kind of 2 inexperienced founders, and they put a lot of advisors in there with some names, but the advisors aren't active. They're not the CEO of Dyson. It's fluff, right? And the investors will see through that. So don't try to fluff up your deck. That's the opposite of thing that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
You're trying to show that you've got people, smart people who are industry leaders engaged in moving your business forward. And if that comes across, they'll ask you, right? Hey, what is this guy doing for you, right? And if the CEO of Dyson just introduced you to the 49ers, that's a great thing to be able to talk about in your deck.
I think Greg's making a great point, and I'll agree with it. Don't put pretty headshots. Pretty headshots is going to hurt you because when somebody's going to come and do due diligence and call that advisor and say, so what are you doing with this founder, Gary? They go, Gary who? Yeah, you're toast. Yeah. But the difference between the FAST, which is an agreement that everybody commonly uses, and the version we use, is our version has an Exhibit A that specifies the tasks that the advisor has agreed to do and is doing. Yeah. And when you call our advisors and ask them, what are you doing with that company? You go, well, here's the 6 things I'm on, I'm on task for. And I accepted the task of that. We don't tell the advisors what to do. We negotiate with each advisor. Here's 6 or 7 things we'd like for you to do. And by the way, I often give them a long list of examples and say, come back and tell me which ones make sense for you. And they'll come back with their own Exhibit A tasks. It's usually a half a dozen to 8 or so, very specific things that they're on point for.
And it solves you put it right in the direct 82B election document.
It's right there. Here's what we're doing. He was saying you can put that right into the IRS 83B filing, which is a document you file to begin the clock, if you will, of your vesting and your equity. And you can put this document that I'm describing right in there as this is what I'm doing on behalf of this company. So good point.
Yeah, and that one more point to that, and that's why adding the article is really critical. You know, in my experience, very few advisors actually work up to the hours that they've agreed to. They don't think like that. You know, their value is connections, it's advice, and they're not on the clock kind of people, right? So you may get a commitment for 20 hours a week. You're probably going to get a half hour, or like 20 hours a month. You might get a half hour, right? And in the investor's mind, they're thinking, "Wow, I spent that half hour to introduce them to a very important person, and I've done a great job." But
outcome focused.
Yeah, it's the articles are great, you know, to really clarify what the deliverables are, because you probably have a very different perspective on that.
I can tell you, with the 49er example, had I targeted, of course, I'm Bay Area, so the 49ers are certainly in my mind. We thought, well, yeah, we should try to get with the 49ers, or at the time, the Raiders or the Warriors, right? If I tried to get to the 49ers CEO, I probably would have gotten a restraining order. That guy made one email. Within an hour or two of receiving the email from the advisor introducing it was me in this example to the CEO of the 49ers, he emailed me back, the 49ers gentleman, and said, when can we chat? Because it came from someone he's incredibly aware of and who's credible to him and who's known to him. It wasn't me, even as an advisor to this young company, saying, hey, I'm trying to help these guys out. Could you help us, hook us up with a meeting? I don't think that would have been as well received. I mean, we do a lot of that outreach too when we don't have a direct connection. But to be totally open about how we even got the Dyson guy, I just thought to myself, how do I help this young innovative hardware company who's known for creating innovative hardware? And I thought, well, Dyson. I mean, I'm not a pure hardware guy like most of those here in the room. But Dyson was one that I just said, you know what, that's a pretty well-respected company. They create really great hardware. I wonder if I could get a former C-level. And I say former because if they're in their current role, it's a conflict of interest. So I don't ever target existing executives in those companies. But I thought, let me go look on LinkedIn. I'm a LinkedIn hound. And I found the former president of Dyson. And I messaged him on LinkedIn, and I said, this is who I am. This is why I'm reaching out. Any chance I could entice you to have a call with me? And he just wrote back, I'm intrigued. Let's chat. And it was about 4 weeks of time that passed before he formally signed on as an advisor. And then, as I said, several weeks later, he got us a first pilot with a very credible. So this process doesn't take long. It requires a little bit of tenaciousness, a little bit of aggressiveness, and a little bit of luck. And we had, in that case, we got all three. We were lucky. I covered the tenaciousness and aggressiveness, and then luck just happened. So.
Luck is 99% perspiration. I think we are way over time. Thank you guys for being very patient with us.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, can we all please give James a huge round of applause for getting up here? It's such a hard thing to do. And now you all are going to have a chance. Oh.
So due to timing, we'll cut the community outro, but we want to give everyone time to stand up, network, take these thoughts, and have some conversations for the remaining of the night. Yeah. So again, thank you guys for having the panel. Everybody, one more round of applause. Thank you so much. We want to keep throwing events like this. Next week at Circuit Launch, there's going to be Oakland Hardware Meetup. Next week? Yeah. Calendar's full, and this is going on monthly. So there's multiple opportunities to come out here and meet your peers. And James, I look forward to following your story as well. So, all right, everybody, continue the networking. We'll be closing doors at 9 o'clock, just so you know. That's right. And a tour in about 10 minutes. Come find me. We'll do a little group. I'll give you a tour of the Port Labs, tell you what we do here. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, everybody.
And thanks to Port Labs for having us. Thank you, sir. Yeah, I really appreciate it.